Yes, we've got breaking news for you tonight. British Prime Minister Theresa May just moments ago delivering a sobering warning on the state of terror there.
It is now concluded, on the basis of today's investigations, that the threat level should be increased for the time being from severe to critical. This means that their assessment is not only that an attack remains highly likely, but that a further attack may be imminent.
This just hours after British police identified the Manchester suicide bomber's 22-year-old Salman Abedi, a man who killed 22 people, was injured 59, including children as young as 8 years old. ISIS has claimed responsibility for the attack, saying that, quote, a soldier of the caliphate detonated bombs within the Crusaders gathering. Joining me now to discuss Herb London, Tammy Bruce, and Paul Viollis. All right, Tammy, you know, we're always bracing for this. We always know there's another one around the corner, but they seem to get they seem to have a deeper and larger impact each time.
Well, I think part of it is also the exhaustion of society in recognizing that we've got incredible governments, incredible resources, incredible military and intelligence, and yet it doesn't seem to be stopping. But at the same time, I think this is why President Trump's tour is particularly important in the timing here, is that we've been dealing with a dynamic with Western leaders saying that this is going to be degraded, that we're going to manage this. Catty Cave, the BBC, said earlier today that Europeans are getting used to this because you can't really stop it. This is a defeatist attitude that now they're seeing America's bringing forth a new attitude that says, in fact, we can defeat this, we will defeat it, and we're going to do it quickly. So that's the difference, is that as opposed to that this is the new normal or that this is somehow sickly natural, the fact is, in a lot of ways, we've allowed it to continue, and that now is going to end.
Herb, what do you make of the fact that there was a period there, particularly at the beginning of the year, end of last year, where it felt like the terrorists were themselves exhausted with respect to weaponry, resorting to knives and automobiles. You had a machine gun used in France on the eve of the election, and now this obviously much more sophisticated attack.
Much more sophisticated attack, and there is no doubt that we have made some strides in identifying and predicting who the terrorists are. But in a vulnerable society, an open society like ours, you cannot be entirely perfect in the manner in which you prevent these kinds of attacks. What you try to do is to engage in as much intelligence as possible. In this particular instance, for example, that bomb has a signature. That signature has embedded information. That information tells you an awful lot about how the bomb was constructed, who was responsible for it. We learn a lot each and every time. That doesn't mean, however, that we are now going to be able to face all of the threats that are possible, and these threats will continue.
Does this mean, though, we talked earlier about defeating ISIS on the battlefield, and the more they suffer casualties there, the more likely they would lash out in the form of terrorism in the West?
Well, you and I have talked about this before. This is not merely a war on a battlefield. This is an ideational war. And we have to have the ideas that are necessary to neutralize what is happening across the globe. ISIS has a certain kind of appeal. However perverse it may be, it has a certain kind of appeal. We have to put ourselves in the position where we know how to counter that.
So, Paul, we're talking about a very large venue, one of the larger music venues in Europe. It's an American act. We saw that again in Paris. But this is also somewhat different in the sense that they were going after very young people, including children. What was the message there?
That was return on investment, Charles. I mean, it's very simple. The business aspect of what ISIS is doing right now is actually pretty smart. You know, they understand where it's weak. They understand what's vulnerable. They're using people that are expendable. They really don't care if they're using these one-off guys. It really doesn't matter.
You're talking about the attacker himself.
Absolutely, because they're going to use a guy, they're going to pick a venue. It's a multiple-pronged part of that approach.
But he's not the bomb maker, right? He's not the...
Could be, because when you think about it, and what Herb said is very true, when you look at the composite of the ordnance, as of right now, the only thing people know was that there was nails and ball bearings, things like that, which is a kitchen bomb. And then people were saying that they smelled burnt gas. Now, believe it or not, you could actually go on the internet and learn how to make that. But ISIS is promoting this, publicly on social media about how to construct a bomb.
Can I just add with these comments here and the nature of what we're facing? The fact is that this now remains a problem in Europe because Western nations are allowing these fighters to return to the countries because of political correctness. This fighter, apparently, this bomber, was known to the intelligence services, but they determined him not to be an immediate threat. I say that it is also to the point where it addresses this notion that this is the new normal and that it is improper to go and deal with these people because it's Islamophobic. That's the ideology we need to push against, is the fact that we are worth defending, that we've got to deal with these individuals and wipe them out, and not let, as an example, these people who are now in the Middle East return to their countries. Simple things we've been talking about now for 2 years have not been implemented.
I see where there's an uptick on that in Germany, but what I do want to go back to what we came in with to Theresa May. By elevating the threat level, Herb, and some experts are saying that this is a more sophisticated attack than certainly we've seen in recent times. It wasn't someone who stole the van. That perhaps it points to a larger active terror cell that if they're on the run, they may want to commit more acts of terror before.
I think that that's absolutely correct. I think that Theresa May is quite right in talking about this as being critical for the future of the UK. But it's true across Europe. And the point that Tammy was making is a very important one, and that is once you accept the idea that this is a normal kind of behavior, you accept that. I mean, one of the contributions that Trump made during this last campaign and this presidential season is to talk about the terrorist attacks in the United States and that we cannot tolerate it. He is going to take the offensive. I like that. I think that that's the appropriate stance for the American president.
All right, so speaking of Trump, President Trump, guys, I want your reaction to this. President Trump, he obviously condemned these attacks, but he used a unique set of words to describe the attackers. Roll tape.
So many young, beautiful, innocent people living and enjoying their lives murdered by evil losers.
Evil losers. If that's the case, are we winning? Are we winning in the class of civilization poll?
No, and the problem that we have right now, Charles, is that culturally we still haven't embraced the fact we're in the embryonic stage of a holy war. You know, that's the bottom line here. We really need to put our arms around the fact that, you know, as my colleagues just said, we're fighting an ideology. And here on American soil, we need to be more concerned with how we're dealing with it here as opposed to how we're dealing with it overseas, because the truth is, Charles, they're here. They're being trained here. They're recruiting Americans. We're not looking at a bunch of people that are Muslim. We're looking at the white kid that's disenchanted right now.
Right, but